children. Look, I recommend to all of you, if you can, and you think I'm crazy, but I'm really not, all of you should, if you can, find a preschool group, 2-, 3-year-old children, and start teaching them. You'll be doing a lot for music and the culture, a lot for music in your program in school, and probably be doing much more for yourself as a musician. Stop thinking about high school choral, high school band, high school this, middle school that. The action is in early childhood. That's where we need help. When children enter kindergarten and they haven't had good early childhood, they're over the hill. All you can do is do compensatory education. And that's what most of us have been through. Get them young, go teach, go get a group of kids together, teach them for free. They'll do more for you. You don't need money. Just teach them. Let them teach you. Okay, well, we have talked about 5 levels of learning. Oral, verbal association, partial synthesis, symbolic association, composite. Those are called discrimination learning levels. Sequentially, everything you ask children, you give them the answer. Everything you ask a student, regardless how old they are, you ask the question and you give them the answer. So many teachers ask questions and children have never been taught how to answer, but teachers nonetheless ask the question. Here's a bar talk quartet, go analyze it. That's so silly. That happened to me at Eastman. Here's a bar talk quartet, take it home and analyze it. What an idiot the teacher was. Nobody taught me how to analyze bar talk quartet, but I'm supposed to take it home and do it. In discrimination learning, we learn to discriminate what something is and what it isn't, making comparisons and relationships. And we teach students the answers. Now, when we go to inference learning, we start with generalization. La-da-da-ba-be-a-dum-bum, yum-bum-bum. And children have, my students have to sing that with soulfish. I sing yum-bum-bum. They have to sing back do-me-do. Let's say I've taught my students bum-bum-bum. And I've taught them yum-bum-bum, bum-bum. So they've learned do-mi-so-so-ti. Well, I can commit a generalization to infants learning and sing to them bum-bum-bum-bing. And I can ask them to figure out what the syllables are on the basis of what I've already taught them, but I haven't taught them that specific pattern. But I've taught them patterns that they can make inferences from to figure out what the syllables are. That's inference learning, and that's generalization. Where you don't give answers, you ask questions. Generalization reading. So many persons call it sight reading. Well, the truth of the matter is there's no such thing as sight reading. You don't read with your nose. All the time we read, we're using our eyes, we're using sight. Why do we say sight reading? If you read, you read. Why do music teachers say sight reading? Because they know students can't read. So they say, oh, well, that's unfamiliar, it's sight reading. No, there should be no such thing in the terminology of contest, sight reading. You read or you don't. If you've been taught how to read, you should be able to read unfamiliar music. You read. And that's what generalization is. I teach you how to read a lot of patterns. Now I give you some unfamiliar patterns. You read them by making inferences from what you know. Then, of course, we get to creativity and improvisation. And that's when we start improvising harmonically. It's what I've done a little bit with you. And then the ultimate thing is the last one is understanding, which in common parlance is music theory, that comes last. And that's an overview of music learning theory. How about some discussion? Anything you want to talk about, or should I go on to another subject? But you had the overview.
The last part, theoretical understanding,
Yeah.
theory part of it. When you teach children, if children at all, apparently not young enough, but when you teach them the theory, what do they get out of the theory?
You're putting me on the spot because there might be some music theorists in here. I would say to you that you can be a great musician without knowing a thing about music theory. You can be a great speaker without knowing the parts of speech, just by speaking correctly. For example, I suspect everybody in here can use the pluperfect tense. But if I said to you, hey, would you tell me what it is? Would you give me a definition? I doubt maybe 2 or 3 of you could. That's what music should be about theory. You should be great auditors. But if you want to do music theory, it should be something that comes at the last as a theoretical, philosophical thing. I don't know really what you do get out of it.
So why is it in here?
It's
Is it just the last piece of the puzzle?
the last thing because I'm a politician, I had to include it. It's there in case you want to do it. But it comes last and it doesn't have to be done. Any more than I have to teach you how to parse a sentence. I don't think.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
But music theory, or grammar, the corollary to music theory in language is more than knowing it's a noun or a verb. It's knowing rhythm of the poetry, it's knowing references buried in the text. It's like appreciating Shakespeare or any other literature. Is more than knowing the nouns and verbs and how the sentences are put together. And wouldn't music theory taught well do the same thing for music?
I think so, but I think what you're describing for me about Shakespeare and so forth, I would call it more history. I mean, meter and so forth. Music theory, well, look, let me be perfectly blunt. There is no theory of music. There's a theory of language. We say deep structure, surface structure, but nobody really understands how we actually give meaning to music in the same way we give meaning to language. Music theory is, how do we give meaning to what we're hearing? I don't think there is a music theory. From my point of view, common practice music theory is an explanation of notation. I don't think it's theory. Yes, sir.